right, Sports Talker Nation, we're back with another of our 2015 year in review. Today we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys, team that always likes to garner attention. How about them Cowboys? Well, how about them Cowboys? They were absolutely terrible this year. As a Philadelphia fan, it made me smile. I know there's a lot of Dallas frontrunners, fans out there that love to watch the Cowboys do well, but they were just terrible this year. And my two favorite teams every week are the Eagles and whoever is playing the Cowboys. And this week, whoever was playing the Cowboys had a great run. So let's start off with what went right for Dallas. What went right for Dallas was, surprisingly, their defense was better than I would have expected. I expected it to fall off dramatically. It didn't. Their defense was actually not terrible. They are a difficult to like organization if you're not a fan of them. They actually had a good pass rush, but the reason for that good pass rush is because they brought in that animal, non-human being in Greg Hardy. On top of just being an absolute piece of garbage, he went out of his way to highlight the fact and flaunt it in people's faces, yes, I'm a piece of garbage, and I don't care what you say. Just a terrible human being. I cannot believe he is allowed to play. And since he's allowed to play, you can guarantee teams will continue to take a shot at him because his talent is through the roof. So I guess their defense went right. Their special teams are actually pretty good. Their kicker is fantastic. Just like in fantasy football, when you're talking about how well your kicker did, your team is not very good. Their team is not very good, or at least wasn't very good this year. Their offensive line, I still think, is probably the best in football, but that didn't show for much of the year as they were rotating running backs until they finally decided on Darren McFadden, who I would actually put in the what went right category as well. He showed reliability, which is not something he showed for any other portion of his career. He was tough. He's changed the way he runs now. He's more of a between the tackle runner. He's been very effective at it. I think if they get back some of their other tools and they manage to keep a guy like McFadden, I think he can be even better. So I think the offensive line went well. I think Cole Beasley as a secondary / slot option actually stepped up pretty well and showed that he can be an actual NFL player instead of just a flavor of the month that everybody wants to be the next Wes Welker. So I thought all of that went well. What didn't go well? Well, injuries, number one. Well, no, that's not true. Number one was being so bold as to think our offensive line is so great, we can just plug anybody in there to be our running back. Joseph Randall mentioned that he thought that DeMarco Murray left a lot of meat on the bone last year in leading the league in rushing with about 1,900 yards rushing. Joseph Randall this year instead went for about 300 yards, was put on the bench, and was cut from the team before getting arrested for a second time. So he's had a pretty precipitous fall for a guy that it's easy to dislike. So great work, Joseph Randall. Enjoy yourself as you're working bagging groceries at the Acme. So that went wrong, was their arrogance. And that's a staple of the organization. Secondary piece of arrogance is having no backup quarterback in place, even with a guy who has serious back issues in Romo. I'll tell you, I've kind of come around on Romo. I do think he's a little bit like Phillip Rivers in that he hasn't won anything, and I'm not sure that he ever will. He doesn't really step it up in the big game. But the guy is a winner during the regular season. He performs well. He keeps your team in games. Give him time as the offensive line does, and he can pick you apart. But the injury to Romo really destroyed their season. The secondary injury that really killed their season was the injury to Des Bryant. Without those two offensive pieces, their offense was just in shambles. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to proceed. They didn't know which way was up. They weren't a running team. They tried to win with defense. They couldn't do that. They tried to win with running. They couldn't do that. So injuries really tore them apart. Again, I'm not unhappy about it. A lot of people might be unhappy about it, but it actually made me pretty satisfied to see them fall apart. Next year, I do think they have a chance to be very good. I think if they get some of those key pieces back, they have one more run and probably would be the favorite in the NFC East. On top of that, due to having such a bad year, they actually get a top draft pick. They don't need an offensive lineman, which the draft is rich in and a lot of other teams will be taking. So they can probably go with a big-time pass rusher to replace the Hardys of the world. They can go pretty much anywhere. They want to get a second big wide receiver early in the second round, they can do that. So I think they have a chance to be pretty good. The best thing as a non-Dallas fan that I have going for me is that Jerry Jones remains the general manager, thinks that he knows football, and doesn't know more than I do. There is no question that I could be a better general manager than that guy, but he has $1 billion and I don't. So as long as he's in charge, I don't have to worry about the Cowboys doing anything severe. They may be the division frontrunner next year, but I don't see them going anywhere. That's the Dallas Cowboys 2015 year in review. I'm your host, the G-Man, and I am out.